Hello once again, my friends. It's Roger, Mudfossil University, and today we are going to be talking about the new species that's been discovered all over the world. I'm not talking about just here in Connecticut or Missouri or in Africa or they're everywhere. Australia, every single continent, every single place, and they are on top of the surface of the earth, so they are not buried deep. This is a species that is undiscovered and now is completely, fully validated. And it needs to be investigated. So let's see what we got, and you're going to be very, very surprised in a number of ways, a plethora of ways. All right, this is my Noto, and this is the side of the Noto, and if you can see right here, that is the heel bone. I don't know, I hope you can see that, but that is it, and it's become mineralized and become invaded just like the rest of the tissue. That is the nature of bone inside of mud fossils. Now, this appears to be bone, but the rest, I think, is metallic springs in here. And you see this here? It's very magnetic. Well, it's not magnetic, but it attracts magnets. You know, magnets are attracted to this. Now, you see down here, you see that pad-looking thing that's on the bottom of them? This would have been filled in here. And I have other ones I've seen. They're just complete big blocky-looking things. Now, and of course they're magnetic. Now that's the heel bone right here. And this is tissue, and that is the tissue that, it's not a shoe or anything. This is where the fibula attaches on the side, and they just fall right off because once they petrify, there is no real attach, and it snaps right off here. They all do that, and I have several, well, they all do it. Let me put that way. There's hundreds of these. Now, that is, and then on the side here, right here, this is going to be hard to see, but there are springs, I believe, in here, and I'll show you the other ones. Now, I believe that's a pin right there. Very hard to see, but you can see that there's a different material there than the other material. And you can see it better in the microscope. I'm just not going to bother turn that on. To trust me, there's a different material, and they leach out through the surface differently if the material's different. This is what it is. Let's see if we can see that. See, that's a Noto right there. Now, these are where the toes are. They're actually right underneath here. Here, if you can hear this, hold on. Let me see if I got something I can tap on there. Hear that? This here, it's loose. The skin is loose. It could pop right off here if I wanted to do that. Now, the toes are underneath here, and it's just the way it is. I don't know what to say. That's the nature of these no-toe feet. And back here is where the bone broke right off. And there's a little bone black on the side here. That's pretty hard to see, I'm sure. You see, that's the bone black right there. And this is normally where blood runs. The red blood turns into white looking stuff, and the vein blood always turns black. The red blood sometimes turns nice and rusty color. You can see some red in there. You see the red? I don't know if you see it, but it's in there. Anyway, that's what these do, and that's a Noto. So we're going to look at the other evidence for Notos, and there's gigantic ones, and they have strange chemistry. All right, here's where it gets really interesting. This is not your standard Noto, I don't believe. You see how it has a pad underneath? Yes, standard Noto. You see the shape of this? Rounded, not standard Noto. You see the pads in the front here? That's pretty much standard Noto. This is one of those toes, and it'll snap right out of there, and you'll have one of those sockets here, and the same thing. The little tips of them are broken off. You can almost see the bone in there, I think is what it is. But these are the pads that are under, and they're all separate, these pads. So every toe has its own pad, and every toe is a little flexible thing. And you see this here? You see this coming down? This is where that assembly is on this one. It comes down somehow and matches up with the toes. just these kind of things need to be looked at. I mean, it's crazy just to let these things not be looked at. Now, the other thing is, you see up here with the moss and everything in here, moss loves blood. It loves blood. And you see there must have been some blood in there because, and of course, a lichen is all over it because the lichen likens it too. And the moss likens the lichen, and they all like it. So that's just the way that works. And this is, so anyways, getting back to this particular, I don't know what to say, whether this is a transitional noto or a primitive noto or what. But I can tell you one thing: it's not the squared off notos that I have. It's like this is a Bugatti and mine is an old style Volvo or something. That's all I can tell you. It's a boxy, the one I have. This has got some kind of swoop to it. So my noto, the first original noto I have, is going to be called the Preston Noto. And Tish's might be a little different than mine. And the guy from Fossil Fields, he's saying that he doesn't have any Notos, but he might. And if he does, they might be different. I mean, he's got stuff that's concreted with shells and things, and it could very well be a shell. I have no clue, the one he has. But I think the one that I showed you a minute ago, and I'll show again just to verify what I'm saying here, because now that you've seen the puffy little pads underneath, that's very important, and the toe over the top. So remember, the pad comes underneath the bottom, this yellowish looking thing, and then the toe goes over the top. Okay, this is from somebody, I believe they're in Missouri, I'm pretty sure, and it's called Fossil Fields, and he's got some fabulous discoveries. Nice guy. Now, I saw this, and he has these, and he's of a feeling that these are snails or some form of sea creatures, you know, and they do. They look just like that. It's snails or something like that. Now, however, I have a different opinion about this because I know of the Notos, and no one else really does, to be perfectly honest with you, until now. Now, this, I believe, is a Noto assembly. And I discovered Notos about 5 or 6 years ago, and never really could understand them well until recently. Tish Egerton out in Missouri as well found a bunch of Notos in this one site with tools and all kinds of things, bones. It's a very valid site, should be looked at. However, I did now begin to understand the structure of what a Noto is like. And this, I believe, I'm almost 100% certain, is the toe of the Noto. Now, I showed you this giant Noto a minute ago that had the pads underneath, and they came only short distance out, and then the toes broke off right at the front, I was saying, and you could just see the little bit of the toe. I believe this right here, this entire thing, is the toe. All right? There's maybe a little bit of padding underneath it, but not much. This normally would be full pad all the way around. Remember how mine came out way down like this? Now, this is the pad underneath. It looks like that yellow stuff. That's the toe. Those will turn black. That's the nature of the difference of that gumite stuff, the pad. And these will pop right out of these sockets. And if you saw the one Tish had, she had sockets. They look just like eyeballs. And these are little sausages that plug in there. And a guy sent me one, or a picture of it, that is one like this, and just the very tip they cut off flat. And you can see the tunica wrapped right around there, inside there. That's the fascia. And you can see it's one of these. And when it got out of there, it got dried up, and it looks like a sausage. It shrunk up like a shrunken sausage does. You know, if it's been sitting out and nobody ate it, which is rare. But anyway, this is also the spring assembly that powers the return. As this folds up here, it forces the spring to twist into a torsion, and its natural intention is to come back down with that, is all I can say. It seems to be part of this assembly, that it moves in this nature. That's all I can tell you. And I think they're all separate inside here. The toes are all separate from each other, and they can wiggle around separately. But they're still encased in flesh. The whole thing is one big chunk, like I showed you on my small Noto. And then it comes back here. Then there's another set of springs back here, and I'll show you what happens there. And I believe this is the artery, I mean the vein, and that's the artery. Arteries usually bleed out white or reddish color. And this is very bleached out. And that's he appears to be from this fossil fields find. And he's got some fabulous stuff. But he apparently was in the ocean or under some water for some long duration of time, because it is concreted in shells and things, and that's why he's thinking these are sea creatures, and they might be, but I see it differently. I see that as a noto. Okay, this is a noto, the structure after it erodes. Now, I believe this is the heel, and this strap is like a tendinous strap that runs from what they call the calcaneus area up to interface with the main part of the body of the foot. And there's some extremely interesting things to look at. Now, you see how perfectly round and so forth these structures are. They look like snails. I understand that. And some people, oh, that's just a snail. I don't think so, because I'll show you what a foot looks like. Now that is the heel bone right underneath of the foot, and the calcaneus tendon comes up the back and it runs up the foot. It's broken off where the foot bone interfaces with the main structure, and it just breaks off flat. Now this, I believe, is a torsion spring. And I worked on a lot of different equipment, and I see exactly the structures I would assume to see on a torsion spring. Now, and I'll explain it to you. Now, if this was the pressure point and was to push up, in other words, if there was toes coming up underneath this, so that as the toe lifted up, it forced this to compress, to decompress away from this spindle, and its natural intention will come back. At the same time, this forces upwards, and its natural intention is to come back, and that's for the central core. Now you can see there's some form of a detent in here, that as this comes up, it not only pushes on here, but it pushes on here. There's something to do with torsion up and torsion back. It really does the same job as the tendons in you and I. And there's some very strange little tabs with holes in them here and there. Now, I know that there's going to be a lot of blood vessels in this, and it is extremely dense with iron, and it is it attracts magnets highly. Now, all I can say is there's a lot of variation of tissues. There seems to be some form of a pin. This seems to be some form of a metal spring. I mean, that's all I can see is what I see. And I know that this color is the color of iron. And it is extremely attractive to magnets. So it's highly dense with iron. And I assume that there are places in here that will have some form of DNA in it. But that is my belief. And remember this now. Remember this, because this is nothing like our foot. Absolutely nothing like our foot. Well, this is like our foot back here. This is the part I want you to look at. And hold on a second. I'm going to show you another one. All right, so here it is. You see that? The calcaneus heel bone. You see that? The calcaneus heel bone. You see the little dip that comes down? You see the little dip that comes down? You see the strap that comes over? You see the strap that comes over? You see where that bone would have come down and come here? You see where that bone is broken off right here? That's what this is a foot. Now, and it's very close to a human foot, but when you go to the front where the bones are, we don't have those. I mean, we have these. We have the tendons and the straps, and they pull and they twist on these little bony, little concave, little, where they interface, the bones interface, and they just do this little thing there as the tendons pull. Here it's a different story. Now, you remember I showed you my original Noto that I found here in Connecticut. And this, if you look at your feet, it's just like this, looks like a flip-flop. And this here, if you tapped on that, on the actual foot, it goes snap, snap, snap. This skin is about to come off. And you can see the toes underneath here, but I showed you that before. Now, Tish Egerton found this one, well, she found a bunch of these out in Missouri. And not only did she find these, but along with bones and tools and all kinds of stuff. And they are nicely eroded to a point where they are exposed their inner workings. And this is something that I have seen on other ones, and I've seen on giant ones. And this allows the foot to move like your hand can sort of flex. It's a different sort of a movement. And they are in the foot, and they twist up and down like this so that you can move on it. It's very nicely made, and this is the tissue of the skin. It's just the way it is. So, and she has a bunch of these. So we're going to go into this more, and just going to show you more and more evidence, and it should be looked at. It is a new species. There's no reason to avoid it, and it's been, well, years avoided. So maybe it'll be looked at now. All right, these are the ones that Tish found, and she found other things too as well. But I believe this is a set of feet. You know, it's eroded. This was a no-toe, but they erode, and you can actually see where the toes are. It's highly eroded, and obviously this one's highly eroded. But you can see these little sockets. You see that? You see this? Like little sausages sticking out of them. That's all I can tell you. And it's just what it looks like. Now, you see what she has here? The same sort of thing that I showed you on my foot. All right? And you see this brownish looking stuff? That is the blood. And you see that's the structure I showed you before. Now look at this. This is, I found, extremely interesting. This looks like a wing nut. It looks like a damn wing nut. You know, you give me a bolt, and what do you want, the big feet or the little feet? Give me a flat foot, and you put it in a little, all right, you go away, and the guy wants a big fluffy foot next week, he comes back, and then bolt it, you put a fluffy foot on. I don't know what to tell you. This is what I'm seeing. You see the same thing I'm seeing. This is where that spring assembly is on the side. I can't account for this. This is the guy's heels, and his front of his feet. It should be looked at. It should, you know, it should be looked at. That's all. That's all we want to do is have it looked at. Now, this I also found extremely interesting. You see that? These are the type of rubber, I think they call this gumite, to be perfectly honest with you. It's a fluffy sort of a pad that's on the bottom of the guy's foot. This is this calcaneus area, the heel bone, and then you have these pads. You have the same thing on your feet. You have these like bony pads on the front. Now, there's where the pad is gone, because it would have gone all the way around like this. You see, that's the crease area, I believe, where it can flex, because obviously you got to arch. It flexes the same way we flex, but they are extremely deep. Now you see all these rocks here? All of those rocks are the guy's body. I am almost 100% certain, because what happens is when they died standing in the floodwaters, and these were this is how this all happened. They soaked in the floodwaters for probably years. I don't know how long, but in this salty water, it would extract all the volatile organic compounds, like the things that explode in your body, the putrescines and methanes and gases and all that stuff would leach into the water. Now, what you would be left with is a mass standing, floating in the water of a fleshy, you know, dead creature that was buoyant, stuck in the mud, or standing, or whatever. Now, at some point, they begin to dry out. When they dry out, they take on mineralization. The mineralization means that they harden up. And there's other places in the world where I show that they harden up quite solidly, and they have been mining them to make walls and all kinds of things down in Peru. So somebody was here working on these things while they were drying. So at some point, these chunks of body parts, and I'm saying, you see how there's no other rocks around here. It's all this one guy's pile. And I bet you could find this. That's probably his heart right there. there's going to be things here, and I can't remember who sent me this, but this is body parts. I'm almost 100% certain. So these kind of things should be looked at. I mean, this is very cool stuff as far as I'm concerned. But I'll show you why I say that they were out here, and there was high-tech vehicles here mining this stuff. That's all I can tell you. And the evidence is not disputable. All right, here's another picture with a couple of different ones. You see how the toes erode? They just pop right out from here. This was a big one. That's where the heel bone, I mean the tibia came down, and they break off, and the blood comes out, and it turns a little black here and there. You see, here's another noto. That's that gumite on the bottom, the fluffy pad. It's eroded quite a bit. But they're a very thick foot. That's just what they are. This is a totally different one than this. That is a uranium toe. This is uranium, and I can tell you that's a toe. I know it is. And I know how the structure of them is, and I know how they go bad, and I know how they petrify, and that is a toe. And it's uranium now. All right, and then this is the uranite. This is the gumite. You see that? I believe that's on Tish's toes. All right, and this is uranite. All right, that's from a heart. That's from a heart. These little black spots that came out of a heart. And then, here's the gold veins. There's uranium here too. This is uranium. But it's somehow, these are the veins of gold in a creature. When they die, and they die in such a condition where the lowest part of the body happened to be here, the heaviest metals will run to there, because they are the ones in your body that float around and do, they're called transition metals. And they float around and move all kind of chemistry in your body, and they are the heavy things. And when they stop moving in your body, they settle to the lowest part in your body. And if it's in such a condition where they can settle all over the place, well, you get little bits here and little bits in there. But if they're standing straight up and down, it will settle right down to the foot. And that's what happens with these giants when they're stuck in the mud. And there is a lot of blood and a lot of gold in these giants. And it will settle straight down to the bottom of the foot. And it'll create what they call a ram's horn as the artery turns like this. It comes down the artery, and it will collect right in that ram's horn. All right, there's some more uranium. That is not just some popped out of the ground uranium. That was a creature at one time. Now, why are these things uranium? All right, I'd like to know how they got around to being uranium. I believe this is a heart too, and that is the aorta part. You see these different colors? That's the colors of transition metals. This is loaded with blood. That is they call the ventricle wall. And remember, before I told you those little black dots, you're going to see those in the seams of the hearts, and you can see this is the fibrous structure. And this yellowish stuff is what they call a fascia. They call it fuzz, actually. Literally, they call it fuzz. Now, it's a heart. So, how come it's a uranium? Talk to me about that. But this is spectacular. Colors of the blood, the ventricle walls. I mean, it's just amazing. That's uranium. Anybody that's a mud fossil person understands fully what's going on. That's the red blood. That is the vein blood. This is the arterial blood. There's I mean, that's what it is. This is a fingertip or a toe tip. And that is what's left over, the last little bit of the bone, and this is what happens as they transition into the black stuff. And that, of course, is the skin and they call it areolar tissue. All right, there's that one here. You see the toes missing under there, and that's where the fibula falls off. Just for FYI, these are Toltec, and these are the closest I could find to the kind of notos that I have, but they still showing toes, so I don't know. Okay, as you know, this is about notos, feet that were discovered. I discovered them in Connecticut about 5 or 6 years ago. Now, this is what I believe is a cross-section of a noto. And that is actually, right there, if you can see, that is actually the toenail, and this is the outline of the actual toe. And you know, they all have that flex in there, and then of course it's broken off there, but you can see this padding that surrounds it, and this is in all the Notos, and I'm showing you some, or I've shown you some, or I will show you some that have this exact articulation, or this exact structure, let me put it that way, and they articulate up and down as a block, and I will describe that very in detail soon. But this is what I want you to take away, is this spongy little stuff. It's called gumite, I believe, and that is the structure of the toe, which is internal in this black mass, which is almost like basalt, but it's biological. And they were alive in these creatures. Now, I have some stunning things to explain about this. It goes much more than the Noto. All right, this is another Noto. Extremely interesting shot. You remember how there was that calcaneus tendon there and it came back? Inside this thing, it's got almost like springs. These are the curly little spots. I don't know what else to say. It's strange by any measure. And then you get to something like this. I mean, this appears to me to be a finger. That's a distal phalanges to me. That's the apical tuft. It comes back. Now then you get to this. That is not the standard thing that you see in the human hand. But I believe this is a hand of a giant, and I think I see another one of these torsion-controlled levers. I don't know what you see. That's what I see. Something that isn't. That's not what. If an anatomist look at that and that was a finger, I don't think he's going to see one of those in a hand or in a foot. And I don't know if that's a foot or a hand. I mean, I don't know what to think anymore. Things need to be looked at. And whoever this was, Rankus 2016. I mean, these pictures are all over the internet, and nobody's paying attention. They're running from them, the geologists and the archaeologists and all of them, because they have no explanations. But I'm seeing the explanations now. It's time to investigate, and this is all stuff that was written in history. It's not something that I'm making up. And this, you know. But they always treat them like they were fairy tales. Not so. This is another thing I think is a bit of a Noto. It has the springs built into some kind of metal that's balled up here for some reason, you know, rusted away, and that's what's left of it. It's just what would happen to iron. That's some kind of a pin as far as I can tell. Or I don't know, I really don't know. But these are the things that, you know, they were turning up, and people from all over the world are sending me these things here at Mudfossil University. And it is for no real reason other than they have an interest to find out reality. And that's what I do too. So that's all we're asking for. We're not holding anybody responsible for not understanding this. Nobody's paying attention to this. But to not pay attention to it now we're going to hold you responsible, because now it's 6 years. And it's totally rejected, and with malice. Not say, well, let's see what you got. You know, you got DNA tests, you got CAT scans, you got specimens, you got all this stuff. No. Absolute refusal to even discuss anything. But you can see this very, very clear. Something has eroded here, rusted away here, and reduced itself. And something has reduced itself here. And that looks to me like some kind of spring and metal and pin and metal, and it's all in a Noto. That's all I can say. All right, here's another one as close as I can get to a Noto. That looks like a Noto to me. Could be. Now, these are the Egyptians. Alamy stock photo, it says here. Hold on. All right, so anyway, that's just another one as close as I can get to Notos. Here they are again. I believe these are Toltec Alamy stock photos.